The principle behind the No Child Left Behind Act is to set high standards, believe every child can learn, and measure to see if we're getting results.
That's how we can incentivize excellence and spur reform and launch a race to the top.
I wanted to teach social justice, and I wanted to really change the system and change these kids' lives and get them to see learning as a lifetime skill that's important for them to move out of their socioeconomic strata. But it's gotten harder and harder to feel like I could teach the things I believe in versus be a yes man and do what the district and the state and, federally, all the pressures on us. All of a sudden, winter is turning to spring. So what does that tell us about those two? They're sort of powerful. What's happened more and more is instead of, professional development, they decided that they need to give more tests. These tests that are culturally biased, that they do horribly on, it's not related to my curriculum. You're testing them on their culture, and they are from a different culture than this testing culture.
KC is basically a test that determines whether or not you will get a diploma for high school, and I feel like I have set many goals for myself, which is to graduate from high school and go to college and become a lawyer. But when I heard about this KC test, I felt like this KC might, end my dreams.
I had a student that had a 3.5 GPA, got accepted into St. Mary's College, which is around here. She didn't pass her exit exams, and they told her she couldn't graduate. You can't just take this one thing and say it's all over because of this one thing. And when you start to do that to people, the stress level is going to go up because little things count.
There was a time when the Casey was coming up in February, I was crying my eyes out, man, because I was thinking if I failed a Casey, I might flunk the grade.
With all the pressure on test scores, instead of giving kids a chance to do art or another interesting class, we make them take 2 math classes. We don't have time for projects anymore. We don't have time to measure the obesity rate in this community and do sort of an integrated project on, what that means, because that takes too long. So things that actually get our students to think and work together and care are pushed aside. Our product is humans. It's not really easily measured.
You have a system that is trying to roboticize students, mechanize them, if you will, to be these academic competitors, these producers. Just the very nature of it in itself is very dehumanizing.
This overwhelming feeling came down from the federal government, from the state, saying, no, 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 we need to push our kids academically because we're not competing with other countries. They're being forced into this one mold that we never, ever had. The kids hate every single moment of high school now. They hate being in school.
Higher academic standards are important for everyone, but how you reach and how you define that higher standard is very important as far as school culture.
We got this piece, yes? Horizontal violence, yes?
Blaming the teachers for America's poor education rather than how those teachers are undersupported, the emphasis on standardized testing rather than learning. You have to hit these test scores not only now to get into college, but to get the school money, to keep the school from being punished, to keep your teachers from getting fired. So all this stuff goes down, the trickle down, and sits on their shoulders.
First of all, we could never address the problems that these kids face on a daily basis, and we're not equipped to. We're not given therapists. Most of our kids need to see a counselor. I mean, they're dealing with drive-by shootings and pressure to join gangs and family issues. And then they come into class and I'm supposed to tell them to write an essay and convince them that that's important.
My dad, who's currently incarcerated, he really believes that I should go to college and try and make a better person myself one day, not to end up like him. But how my grades are right now, I feel like there's no hope.
I think it was in November where I almost had an emotional breakdown.
We see the whole gamut of reactions to the academic pressures as well as the pressures in the community. I've seen cutting, I've seen violence, them acting out I've seen total giving up.
Middle school, I was like the dude to go to when you need help with your math work. Like, I was a 4.0 student. But now that you come to high school, it's been really hard in high school. My counselor said the harder my classes are, the wider range of scholarships I can apply to. This year, I'm now taking an AP government class, and I've gotten a D every marking period. When I got that D, I couldn't cope. I would say I wanted to resort to dropping out of school.
Clearly, the first thing we need to improve education in urban schools, in schools that are serving students who are economically disadvantaged, is greater equity. It doesn't make sense to me that we don't invest up front and then are willing to pay the costs through prisons, welfare, health costs, and all the other ways in which individuals suffer and society suffers when we don't invest up front. Until you provide the additional resources that many, many kids from low-income communities don't get, and I'm talking about basic things like nutrition, seeing a dentist, seeing an eye doctor and getting glasses if they need glasses, all of these are critical parts of them being effective learners. But I don't think the problem is really just with kids in low-income schools. I think the United States really needs to rethink how we do schooling and how much we want to invest in our next generation.
We have to change the ideology of what makes a good educational system, what type of individual are we trying to create.
The economic future of the country, the well-being of the country, depends on our addressing this. We need to fundamentally rethink the way we do education in this country.